All right. Hi, everyone. Welcome to tonight's webinar on how to keep your child safe online. My name is Lauren Dennis, and I'll be your moderator for this session. We are so glad that you guys are here tonight. Please feel free to pop your questions in the chat. I'll be calling those out to our facilitator, Amanda Taylor, and then we will also be answering questions at the end during our Q&A session. Also, just a reminder that we will be recording this webinar, and we will send out a link to view the recording tomorrow. So with all of that, I'm going to turn it over to your facilitator, Amanda Taylor.
Yay, thank you, Lauren. I'm excited. We get to do this every year. And it's always fun. If you've watched our webinar before, you have heard about my kids, and we get to give you all new information about how they're doing and how it changes the way that we parent. And the keeping your kids safe online is a never-ending target. So happy to share what we have for you guys today. To start, if you want to participate in our little starting activity, especially if you're watching on something other than your phone, like if you're watching on a computer or a tablet and you've got your phone in front of you, then it might be easy to kind of multitask. But if not, that's fine too. It's just kind of fun to see some interaction, and it's a little easier to do this on this app than it is just in the chat. So I'm going to share my screen. And we're going to share it right here. So you can just scan this QR code for me. 828. This is CuriPod. This is actually a newer tool that we've been using, and we've been demoing it with a lot of the schools and a lot of the teachers. So if you've got students at home, kids at home, you can ask them if they've used this yet with their teachers. It's a tool that we really love. Oh, look, we got a couple people on. Thank you so much for joining. If you've ever heard of Kahoot, Kahoot's like a really popular old school ed tech tool. It has like the most annoying music ever. CuriPod is like almost there. It is also very annoying. So while we do that, I'm going to introduce myself, and then I'm going to share my other screen with some other things in just a second. Um, there we go. Lauren's going to put that information for the CuriPod in the chat, so it's still available for you guys. I'm going to make sure that she has that. All right, I'm glad to. So I'll put this here and then I'll switch back over in just a second. So my name is Amanda. Thank you, Lauren, for the introduction. I've been working with the Archdiocese of Los Angeles since 2018. I work with almost all of the schools, especially if your school is a current Ignite school. I know that St. Dorothy, I believe, is watching us live all together today. So hello to my St. Dorothy parents. And we have 50 schools this year, and all the schools got iPads for their students. Some take them home, some don't. But really, this whole presentation is for you, the parent. How do you keep your child safe at home? Not necessarily on their Ignite devices, because we have things in place for that. How do you keep them safe on the devices that they have at home that you've given them or that you've supplied for them? So, just to let you know, we're gonna do a little Q&A here in just a second, but I'm a elder millennial. I was born in the early 80s, but I also have a lot of techie skills. I was raised with unusual. My grandparents were actually really techie, so I was an early adopter. My husband is also super techie. We're both in the tech industry, obviously. I'm an educator, so I have that background. In addition to being a project manager, I'm a mother, and I now have 2 teenagers. So when they first started, they were in elementary school, and now they're teenagers. And technology, especially what's coming right now with AI, makes me feel really cautious, but I'm also empowered and super hopeful about what's coming next and how everything is transposing for us. So all right, so we're going to go to our next slide. And on this one, I'm going to start here. We've got 10 people on, and we might get more, but this way you can see it. And the thing to join is also still right here if you want to join us. So do a quick check-in. What generation are you? Are you a baby boomer? Are you a Gen X, Gen Y? I think a lot, I mean, we have such a mix of parents, and the ages range so greatly. I know growing up, I had really young parents. And so I had like really, really, really young baby boomers. But I still have my grandparents. So it's kind of weird having straddling those two generations together. So make sure that you know which generation applies to you. I also have major defining innovations, especially technology related, on the right hand side. So our boomers got color television and cassette tapes. Although cassette tapes are making a comeback, you guys. Space exploration is really big. Cable TV was Gen X, and dial-up internet and Walkmans and the early desktop. And then for me, Gen Y or millennials, personal computers. I still remember the day I got my first cell phone. I was 15 years old, which again, it was a little young for my age, but having an MP3 player and trying to understand how we were going from CDs to this tiny little thing, getting my first iPod. It's funny to think all the things that we used growing up are now like extinct basically, which is crazy. And then of course our Gen Z and Gen Alpha, it's possible we may have a couple Gen Z parents if you got started younger having your kids. So we're going to go ahead and go to the next slide. And you should have the ability to choose. Is that an extra? Oh, here we go. You're gonna choose which generation you are. And then you'll only have 30 seconds. So just pick one of the options and hopefully everybody sees it. All right, just a few seconds left to select which one you are. I try to fix my chair. Nope, not gonna work. All right. So millennials. Okay, so like me, we don't have any older, at least not on the CurioPod today. So all right, so the next one that I have for you is I introduced myself. Let's see, let me go back to that. I identify as a mother. I have teenagers. I'm also an educator, which brings, a different background for me. So I'd love to know a little bit about you. You're going to have 1 minute, and this is a word cloud activity. You're going to have, let me see, let me show you what it's going to look like. It's going to look like this. And each one of these little windows is a place for a separate response. So you can put what you do, how you identify as a guardian, or your role that you have with the children in your home, and then how you feel towards technology. So if you're feeling scared or frustrated or empowered or not in control. So here's some examples for each one. You've got your parental role, your age range of your student or your child, and then how you feel towards technology. So that is what is going to come up next on this word cloud activity. And then after this, I'll have you won't have to participate like this anymore. I know some of people are like, I don't want to participate. I just want to listen. Lauren, do we have any activity in our chat?
We do. So we have some people adding what generation they are in the chat.
Oh, good.
Yeah. So we have people live.
Awesome. That is great. And looks like we might only have 2 in our little word cloud activity. Oh, 5. A whole bunch of people just submitted. All right. Oh, disconnected and supportive, cautious. All right, this is great. TK in third grade, mother, lots of moms, TK5, college parent. Great. This is awesome to see. I love this. All right, I'm going to go ahead and hit end lesson for the CuriePod. CuriePod is really cool, and it also incorporates AI as well in a safe and structured way for your child. So it's really great. We love it as a tool. Um, so the, the moral of the story: we are analog parents in a digital world. Our Gen Alphas have not started having babies yet. If they have, then they're on the very like front edge of that. Um, it's funny when I hear, especially my parents are baby boomers, and so they'll complain about these crazy millennials. I'm like, Mom, you realize millennials are in their 40s, right? Like we're not the 20-year-olds like running around on the streets anymore. So you may have had a childhood that looks a lot like that first picture, playing outside in the streets, not coming home until the street lamps turned on. Where now, sometimes we don't even really want our kids to begin a run around the neighborhood, depending on where you live or how confident you feel like your kid is on their own. Where now our digital world is like kids with screens in front of them all the time. I forgot to put it in here, but I actually have a picture of a little mini family reunion last year for Thanksgiving, and all of the kids were upstairs and they were really quiet, which is usually not a good sign. So I went upstairs to check on them. They're all by the like together, in all of these bunk beds, each on their individual devices with their headphones, but like not communicating or talking to each other at all. So cousins that they never get to see, and they're like, we had lots of other, analog activities for them, but just that moment where they're getting their like screen time in, definitely is a sign of that generation. What I want you to realize is that this analog raising a digital native is nothing new. The silent generation raised boomers and Gen X, and millennials are raising Gen Z and Gen Alpha. Like this is a very normal thing, and it does feel sometimes scary and overwhelming. But every generation has had to deal with the adjustment or the change in innovations, and we never had to deal with this thing. But I also have never had to hand crank a Model T that I'm sure my great grandparents had to mess with. So it is new, but it's also not new, and we can do this. One of the things that I really, feel deeply in myself is that as a parent, it's really important to recognize that mistakes are natural. It's a big part of learning and growing. I get to pull from my experience as an educator in this way. When students make mistakes, we see that as a tested boundary. That's their whole job as a child. So a child's work when they're younger is play. If you've ever had a child younger than 15-ish in occupational therapy, what the heck is an occupational therapist doing with a 5-year-old? They're playing, and it's different things that they do to get them interacting in that way that is necessary for that age. So it is their job to make mistakes. That's how they learn. Our hope is that the boundaries that we give them and the oversight that we provide kind of minimizes the damage that can happen with those mistakes. How many of you have said one of these statements? What were you thinking? Kids these days, you should know better. What happened to my child? They used to be so sweet or kind or playful or talkative or social. Why do I have to tell them to do this over and over and over and over again? Lauren, hopefully they're agreeing in the comments that they say this all the time with their kids. It's not just me.
There's a little lag, but I'm sure people are agreeing with you. It's not just you.
Okay, good, good, good. It's not just me. And I tell this when I work with teachers as well. We say things like, "What were you thinking?" and "You should know better." But truly, they actually don't know better. If it feels like your kid's brain isn't working right, well, it's not. There's two times in that humans experience exponential growth. The first is from newborn to age 3, and the second, any guesses, starts around age 10 and can last until the mid 20s. You guys, 25. 25 for many of us is when our prefrontal cortex is completely developed, which is interesting because legally in the United States, you don't even identify as an adult. You're still a minor until the age of 18, and that gives you certain privileges. And then additional privileges happen when you're 21. So it's important to shift the blame from my kid is being bad, or that kid is being naughty, or that kid's just a bad child. I'm a family consumer science major by trade. And so I studied child and adolescent development, and many of teachers that your students have probably did as well in college. So there's two systems that we're working with here, and I tried to make it really simple for everybody. The limbic system is where stimulation and reward happens. This is kind of in the base of our brain. And this is that, ooh, this was good. I want more. That candy was delicious. Let's eat some more. Or this was fun. Let's do it again. If you've ever taken a small child and tossed them up in the air and caught them, and you hear them say, again, 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 that's that limbic system going, ooh, this was fun. I like this. And sometimes you get this, oh, this is not fun. I don't want to do this again. Or this is scary. That all kind of comes from the same place. The other part of that's the part right here in the brain hasn't fully developed until they're 25. So the ability to plan ahead, to think ahead 2 or 3 steps and say, if I do this thing, it probably isn't going to end well to me. Our brains are naturally wired for that. We finished developing a long time ago. This is also why, kind of a side thing, this is also why drug use and things like that, this is why you're not allowed to drink until you're 21 because your brain isn't fully developed. And this also can be affected by the amount of screen time we have. All of that affects the way that gray matter develops in the brain. So what I want you to remember is that the limbic system, stimulation and reward, that's going. And sometimes it's going overdrive, but your prefrontal cortex, this logic and planning section, is still very much developing in your child until they reach mid 20s. So, what does that mean? That means that on a good day, on their best day, they're going to make mistakes. If you add in any sort of dysregulation, they're threatened, they're feeling stressed, they're sleepy, they're hungry, that limbic system gets overwhelmed and they start doing risky behavior, or they start reacting instead of thinking. Adults, we fall prey to this too, but we have a little bit more history, hopefully, of managing and regulating. If you have a child that has any sort of neurodivergent diagnosis, ADHD, AUHD, autism, anything like that, dyslexia, learning disabilities, any one of those things is only going to heighten these struggles between these two sections. And so my daughter was really upset the other day. We were having a conversation in the car about something that we wanted to do over Christmas break. And instead of just saying, I don't want to do that, because that was the whole point of the conversation, she shut down emotionally. And when we got to the restaurant, she disappeared into the bathroom and she was gone for like 15 minutes. And so I go in and I check on her, and I could tell she's upset, but I'm like, she won't tell me why she's upset. And so I finally get it out of her. And she's like, I don't want to do that thing that we were talking about. I was like, okay, that's fine. We don't, that's why we were talking to you about it. We wanted to get your opinion. But something in her brain, I don't know if she was hungry, tired, whatever, but it snapped and she went straight into like this reactionary phase, which really she didn't need to do that. So we just had a discussion. Like, when we feel emotions like that, this is what we do, and we move on. So imagine all of this going on, right? And we've given them the entire world on a very small device. We've given them the entire internet, everything that you could possibly look up or imagine, plus all of the horrible things that most of us couldn't find if we wanted to. They all now have access to that on phones, on iPads, or whatever digital device that you've given them at home. So when we think about parenting in this digital world, we have to look at it in 3 stages. The first stage is that K5 stage. Parents, you are the primary, you're the driver. Your kid doesn't tell you when they want to take a nap. You tell your 3-year-old, hopefully, when they should take a nap. They have very little impulse control, and they need very clear rules and boundaries for any type of activity, including screen time. And if you've ever seen somebody take a tablet away from a 2-year-old, you know how complicated that can be and how dependent they get on that. And a lot of that is that limbic system just running into overdrive. They like it, the dopamine and the good hormones that produces for them. They don't want to give it up. But it's our job to say, no, it's time, to do something else. And eventually they settle down, the cortisol comes down, and they can move on with their day. Middle school kids, oh man, who's got middle school kids? Middle school is so tough. If you've ever worked with teachers, middle school teachers are literally a gift from God. There's something very special about teaching the ages of like 11 to 14. I've worked in elementary schools, I've worked in middle schools, and I've worked in high schools. All the teachers I've worked with have heard me say middle school is the hardest. They just have that, like they want to be big. They want to be big so bad, but they just don't have the brain for it. And so they're doing things like heightened risk and impulses, but they also want to be loved and cared about and paid attention to. It very much reminds me of when the kids were little, and they'd be putting on their shoes or putting something away, and I'd be like, "Do you want help?" And they'd be like, "No, mommy, I don't need your help," or "I can do it." And then 2 seconds later, "Mommy, help me." So I can do it, but also please help me, but please pay attention to me, or whatever. So it's such a crazy stage. And for those of you that have your middle school kids, like this is your prime time. This is really kind of the last runway for you of parenting. You set the most ground with your children during this age. By the time they get to high school, the autonomy has just exploded. My daughter is a freshman in high school, and the change that we've seen in her in just the last 5 months is just mind blowing. She's gone from being, nervous and, kind of introverted and like not really sure of herself to like having this confidence that I've never seen out of her before in her whole life. So it's amazing how quickly they develop and how their brains start clicking. And even the issue that we had a few months ago with the conversation and she hid in the bathroom, that happens maybe once a month, where before that's like a weekly or bi-weekly occurrence. High school, my mom said it was a kite. Her job was to let me fly, and she was just releasing that string little by little by little. And hopefully, by the time they reach that 18, that legal adult age, they are ready to kind of fly on their own, but they still are developing until the age of 25, which is why we see young adults kind of make dumb mistakes sometimes. So real quick, before we move on to the next parts of this, any questions about the developing brain, what this means? I think we all understand the boat that we're in and how hard it is, but I just want to make sure that everybody kind of gives themselves a breath to remember that, yes, your child is exactly supposed to be this way. They are supposed to test boundaries. They are like, this is part of the normal development. And so we want to make sure that our parenting aligns with that and allows for enough of it that they can grow and learn and develop, but also keep them safe. We're going to talk a little bit more specifically about what that looks like in this next part. Lauren, I'm going to pause for just a second. Hopefully, if we've had any questions, they've popped up. If not, we will move on.
I don't see any, but we can give it a few seconds because I know there's a lag with the live. So
there is. This next section is pretty short, so I can also stop after this one.
Okay, I
So
don't
the
see
first
anything
thing
in
that I want to talk, okay, cool. The first thing that I want to, or this next thing that I want to look at is the legal landscape. So there are two um, kind of things to look at. There's federal baselines for protections of your children while they're on the internet and the data that companies can pull from them. And there's also state laws. So COPA, in addition to things like HIPAA and things like that, COPA protects children under the age of 13 by requiring parental consent before personal data can be collected. And what this looks like is TikTok, Instagram, Snapchat will have a little screen that says, give me your birthday, or are you, over the age of 13 or whatever. And when we lie, or when a child lies about that age, it starts a clock. It doesn't mean that you can create that account and that data will never be used. It just means that in 5 years, that data can be released by that company, unless you pursue the things ahead of time to make sure that they delete all that data. Which, even then, is there truly anything that deletes off, true offline data? I don't know. Um, I just assume that if it's out on the internet, then it's available for somebody. I don't know who, but that digital footprint is really hard to erase. So it's really important that first, think about the platforms and the apps that your children are on. If they're under the age of 18 or 13 and they are utilizing apps that aren't designed for that age group, they shouldn't be using it, period. There's legal guidelines for that. Are you going to get arrested? No. But they're there for a reason, and it's to keep your kids' data safe. It's also one of the biggest places where we see online predators come for our children, is places like TikTok, Snapchat, Instagram, etc. We also have many state laws. Again, every state is a little bit different. We live in California, so it feels like things are a little bit stricter here. But in some states, they're doing other things. In the state of Texas this year, they regulated, or they mandated, that schools can no longer have, no cell phones on school campus policies. And that's a statewide mandate. So every year, it's going to change and become a little bit different. But we have seen a trend where those protections are going more and more and more. What we've noticed in the last 20 years is that our tendency to let children play in the physical world has gotten stricter, but we haven't maintained that strict safety net with the online world. So we want to make sure, just as protective as you are of your kid when they're playing outside in the front yard or at a playground, you want to be equally protective of them in their online spaces as well. So let's talk about, what does that look like? How do we fold in the cheese? How do we protect them? The first one is, we're going to call this pillar one, protecting presence. The first one is privacy protection. So think of one app that your child uses online. You can throw it in the chat if you want. And Lauren can let me know what you guys put in there in just a moment. But for example, my daughter uses Locket. It's kind of like an Instagram-y, Snapchat type app, but that's one that she uses. And so Roblox, whatever it may be, your first step could be making sure that location services are turned off for all social apps, and that you set default privacy to friends only or private. Um, I I would say, not even if your kid is a YouTube phenomenon at the age of 12, should they have these super public channels. I am not the parent of your child. Ultimately, you get to make that decision. But that isn't something that I would necessarily want to see. If you're going to have it open that way, then you've got to make sure that you're extra diligent about who's contacting your child. Also, making sure that you're reviewing who's on your friends list. Like, who is your child following? Who's following them? Who are they DMing? If you don't know these questions, then you should be asking. I was in a classroom the other day, and we were talking about this app called Apple Classroom that allows the teachers to kind of spy supervise the students while they're on the iPads in the room. It's not the only tool that we have in our arsenal to protect students and keep them on task in the classroom. It's just one of them. But when I was introducing it to the students, I said, just like your parents have control over your devices, and they looked at me like I was crazy. And I was like, wait, your parents have like parental controls on your phones, right? And most of them said no, that their parents did not know that there were available parental controls on their phones. And one kid was like, no, it's my phone. I was like, oh, so you pay for it? And they were like, no. And then one kid, I swear, looked at the other kid and goes, do our phones cost money? Yeah, they cost a lot of money, bro. So you're providing it, even if they are paying for their own, even if they have a great job at 14, you're still allowed to put parental controls and to know what's going on your kid's phone. We just did a small sweep of our kids' accounts the other day. Over time, they change passwords and different things happen. So we did an inventory of all of their email addresses, all of their accounts, and all of their passwords. So, I was looking through some text messages between my daughter and a new friend that she has at school. And my son goes, "Gosh, mom, privacy." I was like, "Oh no, you're not 18. You don't get to have privacy yet. There's privacy that you have in other areas. You have privacy with your doctor. That's a state law over the age of, I think, 13 or 14. But as far as using digital devices in my house, there is no privacy." um, every single tool, app, platform, if it is designed for a child under the age of 18, they have parental controls. Some may not be as great as others. Roblox aren't really great, but they do have them. Um, Apple has them for the iPhones. Android has them. We have a little infographic to help you kind of look and see what those look like. It'll help you with screen time, app access, content filtering, etc. And then the next one is screen time. You can manage this, physically and say, all devices go in a basket. One of the rules that we have as a family, we don't get to sit down and eat dinner together as often as we used to. But one rule that we have is that we don't have phones at the table. I don't even have my phone at the table at all, not just turned upside down, but like I don't have it at all. We don't have headphones in. We may only get our kids for 10 minutes at that table. And so we want to utilize that time. If we are having a discussion with a child, they're not allowed to have a screen in front of their face. We need eyes, ears, body, right, looking at us. We also utilize our internet and the wireless setup. This is kind of where my husband is the expert on this, but we use Google Home to kind of manage all of our connections and things. And he has set up automatic, like no Wi-Fi times. So yes, they could still use their iPad to listen to downloaded Spotify music, but like they don't get access to all of their other games. And I will say, when people are like only, 2 hours of screen time a day, our kids my children specifically get way more screen time than that. I think that has to be personal to every family, just like it's personal to every family on when does your kid get their own computer? When does your kid get a phone? Are they allowed to have an Apple Watch? Are you using a tracker to track them? Are you going to get them a Bark phone? Like all of that, you ultimately get to make that decision. But that also means that you can decide when those tech-free zones are and make sure that you're observing that as well. Your children don't want to be at the dinner table with you when you're on your phone, right? They want to be interacting with you, even if they don't think that they do. I drive my daughter to art every day, and it's a bit of a drive, but it's a studio that she's been going to for years and she really loves it. So even though we moved kind of far away, we still make that trek once a week. And it's a long drive. It's an hour and a half, and it's an evening drive, so it can be pretty tiring. And usually, when I take my daughter, we pick either we conversate and chat on the way up there, or we conversate and chat on the way back. So typically, she picks on the way up there. So on the way up there, we may have music playing, but we're both chatting, talking, going back and forth, whatever. And then on the way home, if she wants to pop in headphones and listen to her own music, I'll pop in one of my headphones and listen to an audiobook on the way home. We can kind of have that mix of, that recharge introvert time. I don't have to be talking all the time, but we still have that connection time because we're in the car.
Amanda, really
The
quickly, I just
last,
want to let you know,
yes,
a lot of
go
people
ahead.
are using, the kids are using YouTube, Roblox, PlayStation. And then just to clarify for Rodolfo, I hope I'm saying that right. He was confused about the cell phones in Texas, like the legislation that was passed. That's not in California. That was just in
No,
Texas.
no, it's just in Texas.
Okay.
Um, I don't, if you have a chance to look it up, you could probably share a link about it. The only reason I specifically know about that is I am from Texas. And so I was recently there. And of course, all the family that I have still there has been chatting about it, and cousins, et cetera, are having to deal with that. Um, my you guys have already heard this. My daughter's in high school now. She does not have a phone, but she has a watch. And we gave her it's it's a phone without a phone number. So it's a small Android phone that allows her to have some downloaded music on Spotify, and a couple of other apps, whatever, because she does have opportunity to listen to music and stuff at school, and it sucks to be the only kid that doesn't have a phone. But she can't even get on Wi-Fi at school. They have cell phone blockers all over the campus. I don't like going to her school because if I'm there to need something as a parent, I typically need to be on my phone looking up something like my electric bill so I can get her registered, and I can't because the cell phone blockers are keeping it from everything. So, the last one here is bedtime boundaries. This is huge. Your kid needs sleep, way more sleep than they think that they do. And I know this is hard for older teenagers. They don't want to go to bed until midnight or 10 or whatever. And whatever you can do to get them into bed earlier, if they could have 12 hours of sleep a night, that'd be great. That is the main time that their brain is developing, and it's never enough. It's never enough sleep. The more sleep they get, the better. My daughter wakes up at 6 a.m. every day, no matter what time she goes to bed. My son would sleep till noon if we let him. So lately, he's actually been exercising with my husband, and it's really been wearing him out. And so he's been putting himself to bed at 9:30. The attitude change, working out has been really helpful. It's really good for his emotional like regulation, but also it's putting him in bed earlier, and I have to imagine that sleep is helpful. I'm sure you guys have all heard about blue light. Blue light from screen reduces your melatonin production naturally. You can pop a melatonin, but depending on your body composition, your body may not use melatonin quick enough to be able to put you to sleep within an hour. Sometimes you've got to take melatonin a couple of hours before. So it's hard to tell at 9 p.m. whether or not you need melatonin, or 7 p.m. when you're not even really tired yet. So bedtime boundaries: don't allow devices in bedrooms if you can help it. Make sure Wi-Fi is turned off. Keep the phones downstairs. Have a charging station so they don't have access to it. Pillar two is raising digital citizens together. Creating rules together as a family is important, and modeling behavior is also important. One of the strategies that we are introducing this year is a parent child covenant. So basically, a family agreement to co create rules, not just imposing them. And so, one of the examples that we got is the Family Tech Planner from Common Sense Media. They have one kind of for each age range. But basically, it allows you to go through some of these things like, what devices do you have? What streaming services? I can turn off internet, but my kid can still access YouTube on the TV in the living room. So what does that look like? And we've got some links for resources for you. And then another one is modeling behavior. This is huge. Kids see what we do, and they pay attention to that more than what we say, right? Do as I say, not as I do. That does not work for children. They're paying attention. So the fact that we don't have our devices at the table is telling to our children. When we're in the car, we communicate with each other. We try to stay off of our phones. Obviously, the driver is not on their phone, but if I'm a passenger, I'm not on my phone. We talk about privacy, limiting how we share personal information. We take breaks. We set screen time limits. I even put screen time limits on me for social media because I tend to kind of get into a scroll of doom and then I forget what time it is. Um, it's so hard to say the biggest parenting hack is being able to communicate with your child. And sometimes it's awkward and sometimes it sucks. But keep on digging into that, because if they don't talk to you, then you won't be able to catch when things are happening that shouldn't be happening. And it's okay to set up a system where you discuss the issue first and then you decide consequences later, because a lot of times they don't want to get in trouble. They don't want to tell you because then you're going to get mad, and that's understandable. And then, should my kid be using this app or not? Should my kid be using a phone or not? You kind of have these questions to go through. Is it appropriate? Is it necessary? Do they absolutely need it for their safety, for school, for whatever? What are the privacy policies for this device, app, platform, etc.? Is the community that they're engaging in, is that helpful? So going through this list allows you to kind of make the decision that's right for your family. Because I can tell you that my 15 and 13-year-old don't have a phone, but I know people that have 7 and 8-year-olds with a phone, and they say, my kid has to ride a public bus. They need the phone for safety. My daughter uses a watch for communication. My son's memorized our phone numbers, so he calls us when he needs to by borrowing a public phone. Every family is different. That works for us. It doesn't necessarily work for you, but you as the parent are allowed to make that decision and then enforce it. The hardest part about phones, and this is the biggest question I get, is when to give a child a phone, is once you've given it, it's really hard to take it back. It's possible. You absolutely can take it back. You are the adult. You are the parent. But it's not easy. And you'll see and hear stories about kids that have almost like an addict has, these compulsions, and like their whole attitude changes when they don't get access to something that they need. It's almost like a drug for some of them, especially for our neurodivergent kids, our kids with ADHD, and those types of things. Questions to privacy, engagement in there. So creating rules and understandings between your children and then modeling behavior. Any questions there? We have all of these resources for you as well.
Oh, I was muted. You kind of broke up a little bit, Amanda. So drop any questions in the chat about that section if you have them. And then I know
Okay.
Jenny asked too about app control for all apps and screen time. I know you're going to get into that a little bit based on
Yep.
the device and everything. So.
Yep. Yep. I will. Okay. So our next piece here is the AI data and the future. How many of you are using AI? You can put that in the chat. We'd love to hear it. AI affects everybody. It's going to affect all of us. If it hasn't already, it will. And it is new and scary and different, but it's also really kind of cool. As somebody who's been working in technology for a long time, it's exciting to see. What's important to know about AI is that it is a data ingestion machine. Its brain is a sponge. Every prompt your child types, every search, every piece of schoolwork submitted to a free AI tool is potentially ingested and used to train the model. The risk is children are giving away their intellectual property and personal data to systems that do not follow COPPA, that are not generally marketed to kids under the age of 13. So your children at school, and we've been working with all of the school administrators to make sure that your students are properly set in age groups. So if they do have access to AI tools, it's only applicable to students over the age of 13, or they're allowed to use that AI tool because it does not share their personal data outside. It's one of the benefits of using Gemini if your school is a Google for Workspace education campus. All of those accounts are protected under that Google bubble. So the way that it ingests, it does not share it back out again, like it would if you were using ChatGPT or something like that. What's the difference between them? ChatGPT, Gemini, Grok, what is the new one we've been using? Claude, all of those, they're all very similar. And it's kind of like Diet Coke versus Pepsi versus Dr. Pepper, right? They all provide caffeine and possibly a sweet taste, sugar, but they're going to do so in different ways. The thing to remember that if the product is free, if you're using a free product, then you are the product. If a product is free, you are the product. Like they're getting something from you as you are getting something from them. And that's typically your data. That's how algorithms are built. It's really important to know that. So if your child is using AI, you need to be monitoring what they're doing. And you should never be putting personal identifying information into public AI chatbots. It doesn't mean that we won't go into the paid versions because it's not fair to say, you should only be using paid versions. That's not actually easy for most people to do, but keep your personal data off of the chatbots. And then we are also working with schools to help give them the education they need to teach kids about data awareness and safety. That's been a big push for this year. We also have some resources for you, specifically from Google, a family guide and a guardian's guide to AI with some really great short videos. And I believe they have those in Spanish and in English. Here's an example of the family guide for AI from Google. It tells you more about what it is. I know some of you are probably still wondering, like, what is it? What does it do? What is it for? It's not a human, it's just a really smart computer, but that doesn't mean that that computer has all the right answers. AI very commonly gives wrong information, or it says it can produce something that it actually can't produce. So it's not perfect. It makes mistakes all the time. And sometimes it just makes stuff up, kind of like my 13-year-old, right? You're like, where did that come from? I think you just made that up. Nope, they actually did just make that up. They misquote data, etc. So we have a great infographic for you that talks, that kind of covers all the things. These are all the different, the smaller sections, so you can see it, but it's going to be linked in our resources. Minimum age for social media at the bare minimum is 13. Personally, I would wait until, again, they're as old as possible, 18. 67% of parents are using system controls. We would love to hear that 100% of the Archdiocese parents are using controls. And 1 hour of screen time, or 1 hour screen free time before bed, minimum. There's lots of different ways that you can control app and screen time abilities. I know the iOS systems better than I know the Android systems. In the iOS systems, you can do it like a general app, but then also in the individual apps, you should be able to go in and add parental controls to each one of those as well. Different age limits for different terms of service are important. Most are going to be 13 and over. Fortnite and Roblox are the two that are a bit younger, with the age of 10. The iOS system is called Screen Time. It uses downtime scheduling, communication limits. You can decide who your children contact, who they don't contact. This is also like the ask to buy for new apps. Google uses Google Family Link. It has remote device locking, setting device time limits. My kids were in Texas visiting my parents, and my mom was like, the kids are so tired. They really need to lay down and rest, but I can't get them off their iPads. Like, she can't just go in there and take them away from her. So remotely from California, I was able to like basically lock their devices, and they didn't have access to anything. And you could tell it worked because immediately, mom, what happened? Microsoft also has Microsoft Family Safety. And then, of course, you may also have abilities to turn on and off Wi-Fi on your router, your internet level as well. Some of the big things that students are using, education and homework is actually very little. It's a lot of streaming. The thing that my daughter does the most is Pinterest and YouTube. She loves watching YouTube videos, online gaming and chat, and then social media scrolling if they have it available to them. And then the three things that we recommend is covenant first, make an agreement. Decide on what the rules are, who, what, when, where, why. We've got some templates for you to use to start that conversation. implement those controls. You're allowed to, you're the parent, it's your job. And then maintain dialogue. We're having a constant dialogue argument with our 13-year-old right now. He wants a phone. We're not going to give him one. And we keep going back and forth, and he comes up with new things every day. And then we go back and forth and back and forth. And it's just not something that we're ready for. And we're allowed to do that because, again, we're his parents. So this is the whole infographic. Like I said, we're going to link this there, and we are now to the Q&A section of the presentation. So I'm going to close this particular screen, and then we can do Q&A if you have questions. I know Lauren's been keeping control of those in the chat. Let me turn off my screen sharing. There we go.
Yeah, I think the big one is Jenny had a question. I'll put it on the screen. Is there an app to control all apps, screen time, etc.?
Yes, if you're on the iOS app, it's called Screen Time. So you enable it first on your child's device, I believe. On my device, let me see if I can do this quickly. Mac Mini. If I do that, can I share screen? It went away. I know how to do this on a PC. I don't know how to do it on a Mac. How do I Alt Tab on a Mac? I will. I think we have a little like how-to guide, but it's basically the Screen Time app on the phone. So you would start it on the child's phone. So you would get on there. You would Screen Time iOS. Let me find the page on Apple support.
I have it, Amanda.
Awesome, thank you. So you're going to set it up, and it has. I believe it's a 4-digit code. I think you can do a longer one if you need to. My kids, man, it really frustrates them that they cannot figure out what that 4-digit code is. They've known our code for whatever since they were very young, 0730. It opens up all the things, but that is not the Screen Time passcode. It is a very specific one that I remember. Even my husband can't remember it. He has to ask me for it when he needs it. But this allows me to set up downtime. It allows me to shows me how much time they've been spending on their devices and where that time is going. So Screen Time, it's purple, it's right under focus. So if I specifically look at my daughter, she used the phone, or she used her iPad only about 1 hour yesterday. And then I can kind of dial into that a little bit more. She used Safari for 30 minutes, and then she used YouTube for an hour. And then she's got Spotify, messages, step, and settings. So that kind of breaks down all of those different categories.
And then you can set it up with like downloading the apps that they have to get their parents' permission, right? To download, they have to like input
yeah, absolutely. So you can put on there, the apps that they can and can't have. You can put in app limits. So like if you want them to be able to use Instagram, for example, you can set it to only an hour a day or only 30 minutes a day. And when they get to the end of that time, a little window will pop up and it'll say, ask for more time. Or they can get off of it and go somewhere else. But that's also where you can set, it's called content and privacy restrictions. So iTunes and App Store purchases, allowed apps and features, App Store media and web and games. You can also turn off Apple Intelligence if you don't want your child accessing Apple Intelligence. That's another AI area that's fairly new. You can adjust, so privacy, I just changed mine because I didn't realize that she had privacy turned on. So I just turned privacy off for that. FaceTime, accounts. So one way that children will get around it is they'll log out of whatever their Apple ID is and they'll log into another one. So you can lock the account so they can't log out of that Apple ID. And that makes a difference as well. So you've got a lot of granular controls. It is not perfect, and we run into issues all the time, especially with contacts and adding contacts to my daughter's watch. But it is better than nothing, and that plus all of the other things that we do makes a big difference. But the ask to buy is definitely a favorite.
I just went ahead and shared. This is the infographic we created, and it's dropped in the chat. And I will also send you an email with a link to access the recording and this. But it kind of walks through the different privacy and everything for different devices. So Android, Microsoft, Apple, it's kind of all listed there, along with that tip of ask to buy for all new app downloads.
Right. And there's, if you've never used ChatGPT or Gemini, this is a great place to start. Open up, let's see. I can do it with Gemini real quick if I can share my screen again. Oh, we also have a survey for you guys to fill out. So let's see. My child is using Roblox. What parental settings are available and what should I know about? It's actually a perfect reason to use AI. Are you sharing that screen that I shared, Lauren? Yeah, thank you. So my child is using Roblox. What parental settings? That's a great question. Roblox offers robust parental controls. I don't know if I agree with that. To get the most control, create a separate parent account and link it to your child's account. The downside to this is your kid can just make a new account. So it's important to check what account they're using. But then it gives you some things to go through, and you can always go back and respond back to this. That's the whole point of ChatGPT is it's a conversation. Like here it says, I would be happy to walk you through the settings of linking your parent account to your child's account and set in content maturity levels. You could say, yes, please help me with that. Or you can say view sources and see where the heck they got that information because you've never heard of that before. So starting here is great. Honestly, some of the, let's see, my child wants a cell phone and I don't want to give him one. Help me come up with more arguments for why he needs to wait. There you go. So now I've got more arguments to use with my son as he comes back and says that he needs that he needs a phone. One of the things that we look at is impulse control and readiness. There actually are some really great signs of readiness. I'll share those with Lauren so she can put that in the follow-up email. And he's just not showing those signs of readiness, which is another one of the reasons why we aren't giving him a phone yet. But right. That is, we're at 7:01. If we don't have any other questions, if you guys could please fill out our survey, we really appreciate it. Thank you for tuning in. And this will be available recorded, etc. If you guys want to share it with fellow families.
Yeah, we'll give it a few more minutes and just see if any other questions pop on.
All right, sounds good.
Oh, Maria said she found this very informative, and she says, thank you. Thank you for joining us, Maria. I'm glad you found it informative. Sarah said, thank you. Okay, everyone's saying thank you. They found it very helpful. I don't see any other questions, so I think we can go ahead and just end the live webinar. But thank you so much for joining us tonight. We know it's kind of a little bit later at 7 o'clock. So thanks for taking time out of your evening to join us. And we will send you a link to access the recording along with all the resources that we shared in this webinar. So thank you. And thank you, Amanda.
Yeah, thank you guys. We appreciate you tuning in. We'll see you next time.